Hey folks, welcome back to Behind the Hedges. It's I guess it's Tuesday night now, huh? So a new date, same time, 9:30 Tuesdays. We're going to be doing this thing. Matt and I are going to be taking a look this week at the beloved Auburn Tigers. Are we Plainsmen? War Eagles?
Hold on. Time out. Let me. Those of you who know me know that in my world of college football, the kind of Georgia fan I am, that Florida is public enemy number one with a bullet, with a knife, with an axe, with a baseball.
Right. Yeah.
Mitch checks all those boxes for the Auburn Tigers. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. If there's a team that could just die in a fire, it's absolutely Auburn for me.
Yeah, and some of y'all out there might be able to identify with this. I think it's geographics. I'm from Valdosta, Georgia, South Central Georgia.
You can smell Gainesville from Valdosta.
Yeah. Mitch is from the Donaldsonville, Bainbridge area, Southwest Georgia. Mm-hmm. So he's in proximity, as some of you who may be from that area are, to Auburn. I'm in proximity to Gainesville and Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that I got to deal more with Gators. He had to deal more with Tigers. So that's why our hatred don't quite match up.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I hate me some Auburn Tigers, but mine comes from a different source. My mama, God rest her soul, was the biggest gump you've ever met in your life. And when you talk about hatred for Auburn, one must stand in awe, in absolute awe of the hatred my mother bore for that team, that program, and that school. She remembers telling me stories when her daddy would take her to games in the 60s. When Bama would win, Auburn fans would throw glass liquor bottles. Not the plastic shit they was throwing at Matt Stafford and Mike Henderson at Tuscaloosa. Glass liquor bottles with intent to harm, maim, and kill at children who dared to wear the Crimson Tide color. So some of that filtered down to me. Also, if you remember back in the 90s and for most of the 2000s, Auburn used to get that ass. So it also became personal for me from that. But my hatred for Auburn does not match Mitch's hatred, and I think it's more of a proximity.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. I might hate the university, but I really am quite fond of our guest tonight. I'm going to bring him on now. I would like to introduce everybody to Mr. Warren Allen Tidwell, our resident Albie, our resident Barner. And and Warren, I don't know if you guys have met Warren yet or not, but Warren's a smart guy. I go back with Warren through academic endeavors, and I know that, Warren, you have a good knowledge of all things state of Alabama, and particularly the flora and the fauna and the geography and whatnot, right? Right. And I have a little science fact for you, but it's from the Georgia side of the river. If you didn't know this, did you know that the trees that grow along I guess that would be the eastern bank of the Chattahoochee, right? The Georgia side of the Chattahoochee. The trees actually is some sort of, like a tropism sort of thing. The trees actually tend to the tops of the trees lean towards the west. Do you know why that is?
I don't know why that is. I know that Alabama has more natural biodiversity than any area that size in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing there's something to do with that.
No, the trees in West Georgia lean to the west because Auburn sucks.
Ah, yeah. I was going to do you the favor of setting that one up.
Wow. Okay, so that's how it's going to be, folks. Mitch, here's the gloves, and they coming right off. And I challenge you to fisticuffs.
Well, if it wasn't for Georgia and all the felons they've sent us the last few years, we probably
wouldn't have had a shot, right?
Yeah, never
hey,
won.
We saved that joke for the Florida fan.
Well, Florida sent us Cam too, so we got
Cam Newton. I mean, Florida likes to talk about 1980, but 2008 was a long time ago, and I think like 25 guys on that team wound up in prison or some such.
Yes,
it's a national championship no one talks about.
Pretty
So I got to tell you guys, I really look forward to the Auburn game every year because it affords me the opportunity to share this.
And the early Kyler turned out to be a racist piece of crap like so many other Georgians. Yeah. Of course, we can't cast stones in Alabama for that.
I don't even know what the hell I just saw. What the hell was that?
You never watched Squid Billy's, Matt?
I did, but I couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't. What was that?
It was
educate me and the listeners who couldn't hear that.
I like. Well, I think you might need your earphones on, pal. I like driving in my truck. Auburn sucks. It's the song he did with was it T-Pain?
T-Pain. I get that one sent quite a bit. Yeah, and as a fan of Squid Billy's, it really just doesn't get to me, It's a great show.
Yeah, that show is golden, man.
And I'm in no way, as you're well aware, Mitch, a homer when it comes to Auburn. In fact, I'm probably one of our biggest critics. Have a lot of self-deprecating jokes, and I have a love for the city of Athens, as we've discussed, right? So it's kind of hard for me, like I really just the banter between Georgia and Auburn, we've had the conversation. I don't get into it as much.
I know a lot of the stuff just rolls right off of you. It's frustrating for me because I need some of the trash talk to stick. It's got to sting a little bit. I mean, you're a hard one to sting, Warren. That's kind of the way I feel about Ethan too. I really like Ethan. Man, he is fun to ruffle up, and he will get ruffled, and he fires back too. So I like having that guy around. But anyway, sorry, what's that?
I was going to say, I think that's kind of like a defense mechanism, right? Like it is my form of banter because if you can't really get under my skin, it's really frustrating. So I'll be the one to throw out the jokes about, Cam only played 1 year because we had to free up money under the salary cap. And that really fires up Bama fans,
Is it here's a question, and one of my cousin who's a big gunk was on here a few weeks ago, a month ago maybe. I don't remember how long it was. Mm-hmm. He's Bama. We asked him who his most hated team was, and I'm expecting the obvious answer. He surprised me. He came out with Florida out of nowhere. But for you, is it Bama?
No, I have a very interesting background, and the reason it isn't, I went to the University of Alabama. Yeah, and people say, "Why are you an Auburn fan?" And I said, because I lived in Tuscaloosa. That's what did it.
Oh boy!
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have a very complicated history with Tuscaloosa. Worked up there after the tornadoes. Became friends with like the families of the ex-coaches. Ray Perkins' son Tony is just a brilliant fella. And so it's really hard to get into that, but it never fails. Like I still feel it. We get up to Iron Bowl week, right? And the last few years, I'm like, we're going to get, the brakes beat off of us. But I'm like, I still want to win this game. And when I was a kid, I used to tell the joke, what's the difference between an Auburn co-ed and a catfish? And the punchline is one has whiskers and smells and the other one's a fish. And the universe being what it is, I ended up marrying an Auburn co-ed. And so, that's my life has been one great big series of, different coincidences and contradictions for sure.
So who's that team then for you?
Oh my goodness!
That team that when you see those colors and you hear that song, and you see them run out of that damn tunnel, your neck becomes ice. I can't stand this, honey. I can't. Who's that team?
I hate to lose to Tennessee. Like that's a tough one. It's really interesting. I think that goes back to me being raised a Bama fan, right? Like that's the whole thing there. Yep. But yeah, like I really and truly, as a fan, those games that you're not supposed to lose, right? And that's anyone in the SEC that's like say Mississippi State is struggling, right? The thing that makes me feel that is Auburn coming out and doing what Auburn tends to do, especially Gus Malzahn coached Auburn teams, right? Winning games they're not supposed to win and then turning around and laying an egg against, Mississippi State or whatever. That's what gets me. But, yeah, I think it's just that, I think the movie The Blind Side, that orange is not in my color wheel. I just don't like but they've sucked for so long now, right? That it's just even that is just kind of hard to do, but I've enjoyed that.
What did I say about Tennessee? They've suffered for so long. I'm almost like backing off of them a little bit. Like you've lost your teeth to the curb stomp. What else can I take from you?
And I said that a couple of years ago, and I said, I'd like to see Tennessee at least be really competitive again, to make it interesting. And then they beat Auburn, so I don't say stuff.
That was the game that broke their 13-game SEC losing streak, and then they got off the schneid against Auburn.
So, Who is Auburn? Who is Auburn right now? Let's back up. Here's the question. Who does Auburn want to be right now?
Auburn has always been what Spencer Hall wrote an article, and if you can find it online, it is the ruiner of all things, right? That is what Auburn we ruined. Look at Florida. How many times has Florida been number one, come up against Auburn, right? And then lost so many times. Auburn's beat Florida number one. Okay, and then you'd have a team like Tennessee that is on a huge losing streak. Auburn does them the courtesy of messing up that or fixing the losing streak. Mm-hmm. Auburn has taken so many people out in the most painful ways in meaningless seasons for Auburn, right? And I know as Georgia fans, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh God, I think that's why I still bristle. Despite the fact I think they've only beat us 3 times in this last decade. Every time that game's on, I'm like, oh God, it's Auburn.
Yeah,
we've had success, but here it comes. This is going to be that time. I remember that one time.
It has to do with the luck factor, the whole kick six prayer Jordan Hare thing. The whole, I've mentioned this before when we were talking to the Arkansas guys. It's like if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, Auburn's rolling that luck bat 20-sided die, and it's 20 on all sides.
And I'm telling y'all, it's such as a fan, that's the thing that right now I'm really down on a lot of Auburn fans because they've become quite spoiled over the last few years, right? They've forgotten what it was like to be Auburn for a while. And, it's fun. There isn't going into games and just not knowing what the hell is going to happen and feeling like Auburn at any time could do anything wild and crazy. It's so much more fun. I know Bama fans are just having a blast, just curb stomping everybody, piling up championships and things like that. But after a while where you're playing to just not lose, I've watched the Facebook feeds, right? And there's this anxiety. They're like, oh, God, okay, we're not ahead yet. What's going on, Bama? And then Bama finally gets ahead, and then, Anaconda squeezes the other team to death. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's going to sound like such a BS Auburn fan answer, but it's the truth because I enjoy the game. I enjoy, the drama, and my goodness, does Auburn deliver on that way more. We had the term for a long time, Clemsoning, and that, of course, is laying an egg and losing a game that you shouldn't have. I said we have Auburning that is coming in and doing something like the prayer and Jordan Hare or the kick six or something. I mean, any other team, y'all tell me. There's no other team out there that does that crap.
Oh, we've talked about this. Auburn, nobody pulls that off. Nobody. I think they've spent their football karma. And I think that may be silly. People may be like, okay, yeah, that's dumb. Well, maybe it's not, though, because luck is a thing. Mm-hmm. And you've had some it's not those two specific plays, the prayer and the kick six, in the same season.
Yeah, 1 week apart.
Come on.
Mm-hmm. I know, back to back. Calls everybody gets calls and misses calls, but Auburn's got some calls. What were the games last year that Auburn should have lost? Mitch, you remember? You texted me. You were like, "Yeah, was it Kentucky or somebody?"
There was it was the Arkansas game. There was the game where the Bo Nix spiking the ball.
That's the one.
Yeah, that was a fumble.
And they did lose to South Carolina. It was one of Carolina's 2 wins.
Right. They do.
They were one of 2 teams to lose a bowl game from the SEC. the other being the Florida Gators. Was it Kentucky?
Yeah. They really that's on. They're in the 2010. We're talking about the national championship year. What a fluky year that was, right? Could have lost to Mississippi State. Should have lost to Clemson. Last second kick against Kentucky. I mean, so many different things. 2004 when they went undefeated, beat LSU on like the last play of the game. Right now, that was a truly great team, and they had an amazing year against the SEC. But the 2010 year should have never happened. That is the flukiest national championship in the history of them. There's so many, and that's a perfect example of what I talk about Auburn being Auburn. Yeah,
it's like no matter where they are on paper, in the back of your mind they got a puncher's chance.
Statistically, they are, and this is in that article I'm talking about by Spencer Hall. They are historically the most overrated and underrated team in college football history. If they start the national championship year, they weren't ranked. A lot of people don't know that. And if they start off in the top 5, I'm like, we're screwed. This season's going to suck. I mean, that's just Auburn.
Yeah.
Let me back it up before we move on, because I want to I don't think I've ever actually asked an Auburn fan this question, but I've had some pretty loud, sometimes semi-violent arguments with USC fans, and I'm not talking about Junior from Columbia. I'm talking about USC from Los Angeles. In 2004, was it 2004 where Auburn got left out when they had Cadillac and that whole squad?
Yeah,
yep.
I think so.
Do you believe that Auburn squad would have had something to say about USC?
Without a doubt.
Me
and
too. I have gotten into some people's faces that I probably shouldn't have got into out west in LA about how I believe that team probably would have had something to say about Pete Carroll and his squad. And I just wanted to hear if an Auburn, you seem like you're on the level. I wanted to hear what you thought about that particular year.
I've never seen a more complete team top to bottom that came together in that year for Auburn. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember, outside of that LSU game, nothing was competitive. What hurt Auburn was what happened in 2003, the very first game of the season. My wife's a student. We're going to the game. I tell her at the time, I've told this story a million times. Dontarius Thomas and Carlos Dansby are this dynamic duo at linebacker Auburn has. I'm like, they're starting a freshman quarterback. These guys are going to eat his cheese. And Matt Leinart came out and threw all over Auburn, and they won 23-0. Without that the year before, I think Auburn would have gotten more consideration in that game. And everybody wanted to see USC, Oklahoma. And the excuse that was used that year was, well, the SEC's having a down year. Y'all remember what happened in the years after that with the SEC and national championship?
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
they were a great team. That's why 2010 was particularly sweet, right? Because it was like, yeah, we kind of fluked this one out, but we really got hosed in 2004. So I was like, at this point, we'll take it. But I'm with you. I think Auburn has used up the football gods are done with us for a little while, I think.
We'll see. We'll see about
Georgia fans, y'all feel that way. I understand why, but I mean, law of averages. But again,
who's that?
Yeah, we
Hey,
got.
hey. Tell him my screen name there, Mitch.
Somebody else that
can I see
wears
it?
Orange. Orange ain't in my wheelhouse neither, but go on ahead.
I can't read the whole thing. You might want to tell us what's another ordinary.
It's just another very ordinary listener.
Yeah, another very ordinary listener.
AVOL, yes.
AVOL.
AVOL. Yes. So I was just wondering what side that you came down on. How responsible do you think Kevin Steele was in the downfall of Gus Malzahn?
Ooh.
Auburn, no, here's the thing. And Mitch knows I have very strong opinions about the things that go on at Auburn University. Auburn, before this, is much like Alabama was before they hired Nick Saban. You've got a bunch of trustees. People don't understand these multi-million-dollar trustees. That's their little playground. They don't see the game the same way as we see it. And I have no doubt that the names that popped up, that they played games. I was pleasantly surprised that Alan Green, stuck to the athletic director, seemed to stick to his guns and hired the guy that he wants. Now, for me, I don't make, after that 2003 Auburn USC game, I don't make predictions on Auburn. I have no idea how Brian Harsin's going to do. I was pleasantly surprised at the 2 pickups today that I heard about, and Auburn got bumped up to like 20th in recruiting per the latest rankings. You know how arbitrary that is, but I'm hopeful that Harsin will. I know that Malzahn. I really want to get on that retired Auburn coach fired list, right? Because the fired Auburn coach list, because they're probably still paying, Pat Dye's family at this point. They've spent millions. I think it was $21 million. They had to cough up $10 million within 10 days of Malzahn being fired. I'm more upset about that whole aspect of it because, I work in the communities around here, and it's just absolutely obscene the money that Auburn has wasted just moving coaches. And 9 out of 10 times, the trustees have something to do with it. And
Bobby Louder probably had the mortgage on his vacation homes to pay that.
Right. I was introduced to Bobby Louder at a Mother's Day brunch on campus, and I turned around and someone says, "Hey, this is Bobby Louder," and I turned around and went the other way.
Who's Bobby Louder?
Bobby Louder's the trustee.
Is the trustee. Bobby Louder's daughter was one of the rumored main reasons why Terry Bowden was an ex-Auburn coach.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot to that rumor.
Yeah, supposedly they were very close.
Yes.
What's the name of the fella that owns Yellowwood?
Oh, Jimmy Rain. That's another
Jimmy Rain. They're not friends. They're not even acquaintances. But my father happened to have played golf with Jimmy Rain at some point, and my father, who's been known to talk a line of shit, so take this with a grain of salt, said that Jimmy Rain has wanted Malzahn gone since the word go. Secretly, for some reason, he's just been like, nah.
Well,
and Jimmy Rain apparently holds some sway. I believe he's in that group of people y'all are talking about, like the
richest man in Alabama.
Well, yeah. It's really historical. Auburn fans never really accepted Pat Dye because Pat Dye's a damn Georgia graduate.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. That's
Yeah.
Alabama. It's like Alabama not accepting Bill Curry because Bill Curry went to Georgia Tech.
But we'll take it back to if you want to take it all the way back to 80s and Pat Dye and being honest about Auburn.
Yeah.
Without Pat Dye and all the underhanded stuff that he did to put Auburn on the map and get them on equal footing with Alabama, Auburn wouldn't be the program that it is. And Auburn folks know that. They know Pat Dye knows where of course, rest in peace, Pat, but knew where all the bodies were buried, right? So he was always on the periphery. It was really interesting, how that he would be. You'd be shopping in Auburn, right? And like this little guy, I'm 5'6", and he used to be a big guy, but he had shrunk down so small. This little old guy'd come shuffling past you, and you'd be like, "Oh well, there goes Pat," right? Like he's just this. He was a fixture in Auburn for so long, and for a long time, Tuberville stayed here. Gene Chizik still lives here. Auburn's been good for coaches getting fired.
I always, as a Tennessee fan, I always found it kind of ironic that we literally have all the damn bodies buried right across the river from the stadium, and
right.
we really not
You have that body farm up there, huh?
Exactly.
Forensics
Well,
college.
the bodies until about 20 years ago were actually kept in the damn stadium.
Yeah.
Before they moved.
We got some business to cover, guys. We can sit here and shoot the breeze, but actually we need to do some business, and that is we need to talk about Auburn's. I'd like to talk about who's leaving, who's graduating, who's transferring, those kinds of things. Who off of the 2020 team, who's moving on, who will not be back in 2021. What can you share with that? You two guys should have a player in common, Big Cat. Now, I need to ask you guys a question because I discovered this the other day and messaged Matt and I said, "What's up with this?" Big Cat leaves Auburn, goes in the portal, and says he's going to be a volunteer. He's going up to Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Then the whole Pruitt getting fired, and they hired Josh Heupel and all this, right? That happened. What was that? January the 19th or something like that. Yeah, and then about 10 days later, that little Auburn Arrow Tennessee changed on 24/7 to Auburn Arrow Tennessee, but right underneath it, Oklahoma 100%. Is Big Cat shifting gears and going to Oklahoma with Wanye and Eric Gray, or what's?
Well, here's something interesting that I found out today. Wanye has not enrolled at Oklahoma yet,
Right.
so that ain't nearly a done deal.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to hang on to Big Cat, but it's
Wow.
I mean,
He's the one who made Stetson Bennett famous.
It's not. It's not.
Stetson Bennett got another shot at 3 freaking games because Big Cat got juked by him and he converted on 3rd and 10. That's the only god darn reason that we stuck to Stetson Wagons for another half a season. Why would you want somebody like that?
Hey, we need all the bodies we can get, man. Okay? I mean,
sorry, I get a little emotional.
Yeah, I mean, it's just next year's going. We're going to score a lot of damn points next year. We just ain't going to be able to. We ain't going to be able to stop a cold. Much less an SEC another SEC offense. We're going to get cannibalized. It's going to.
We're going to have to do another Tennessee show before all this.
It's going to have. Well, if Grace down there in Chattanooga can keep from killing himself, we would have done one this week. But for those of you who don't know, hi Brandon. We know you're probably watching.
Yeah, Brandon, what happened? I heard about some bruises and whatnot.
Brandon had a little bit of an accident up at Pigeon Forge. He slipped getting out of a pool and.
You should say he fell off the Hollywood Flume ride.
Fell tits over tea kettle, ended up bruising just about every part of his body.
Man.
So, I mean, he's okay.
Be well.
Yeah. I told him to rest, and we'll do it next week. I mean, but just it would be like that. Because as soon as he said I got bad news, I'm like, okay, well, you're in the hospital. You totaled your car. What did you do? I mean, so that's never.
You guys are going to need to do another Very Orange live stream.
Yeah, we are.
I don't have it in front of me. Did Tennessee and Auburn play this year?
If they play, it's a home game for Tennessee because we went to Auburn. We've been to Auburn twice, actually, 2 times back to back. So
Auburn's schedule right here.
Yeah,
well, I don't have it in front of me.
We are playing, it's a home game for us.
Knows better than I do at this point. So
because we played them there back to back 2 times in a row.
Oh, he's looking that up. I got a question for y'all. Do you think with the move that Auburn made, they have brought themselves closer to their goal? Did they make? I mean, was this a good move?
My first reaction is that it's for Auburn. I mean, it's at best a lateral move. I mean, that's my first reaction, right? I want to be proven wrong. I really don't know, and I've been so spectacularly wrong about things with Auburn in the past. When it comes, I thought Gus was going to do all kinds of awesome stuff and win, and we did. We had some high moments, but some very low lows.
So that Penn State game will probably be the ESPN 7 o'clock game.
We're up here in Nittany Lion country, and I got to tell you, man, they were miserably bad last year. I don't expect them to be miserably bad this year. I don't think they're going to be world beaters, but I don't think they're just going to roll over and die. Let's go through this. Let's go through this schedule really quickly here.
Sure.
What am I doing? Where am I at? There I am. Okay.
Sure.
So you guys are starting off with Akron, Alabama State, Penn State. We ain't even going to talk about Akron, Alabama State. Those are wins.
There won't be a line on the Alabama State game.
But Alabama State,
Akron will be 40 plus.
Alabama State always brings an amazing band, and the Honeybees when they show up. If you don't know about the Honeybees, get on YouTube, Alabama State, check them out. Highlight of the game. People show up to see the band, but yeah, it's going to be a big win.
Yeah.
Just like when did Southern come to Athens? 5 years ago, something like that.
Georgia Southern?
No, I'm talking about Southern University.
Oh,
HBCU.
Not in a while. That's
No, I mean, wasn't it Southern that came? Because they paid for the band to come.
I'll look it up, but I don't.
It's been recent because one of their players got hurt really badly.
Oh yeah.
That was
I think
that
that
was
was Southern.
That was or Georgia State, something like that.
No, it was HCB. It was HBC. It was a HBCU.
I think it was Southern, and that was back when Rick was there, and they still have a foundation for that guy. God, what was his name?
Yeah.
I remember all that. This was like 14 or 15. This was
he got hurt.
And then it was the almost absolutely nightmare debacle a couple of years later against Nicholls State.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end for Kirby.
Y'all need to lay off them small
in the beginning.
Louisiana schools, excuse me.
Dude, Nicholls State. Before we get into this business, I just want to just make sure, in the spirit of being self-deprecating and honest, like Warren is about Auburn, Nicholls State, I think, came into that game heralded as the worst team in all of college football. No matter how much rebuilding or how much reshuffling Kirby's got to do, this is going to be a statement game. Nope.
I believe
had me sweating until the last quarter.
I believe their starting quarterback was the nephew of former New Orleans Saints quarterback John Forcade.
Yes,
You're correct.
They also had that defensive lineman who was on Last Chance U season.
They had two of them. There were two of them.
But Ollie was the one. Ollie was the one I followed. Ollie.
Yeah, he's the one that he got a free agent contract with the Raiders.
Yeah,
and Gruden ran his ass off in about a week.
I listened to the podcast.
His name was Ronald Ollie.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the podcast or the Gamecast. Eric Zier was like, "Folks, I don't have anything. I don't have any answers for this."
Yeah,
it was like 22 to 20, wasn't it? Something like that.
24 to 21. 24-22. That was 24.
It was,
But anyway, look here. Enough of that. Akron, Alabama State, and Penn State. First three games. All right. I see that Auburn is going to be definitely 2-0, possibly 3-0, maybe 2-1 after those first three games.
I see them being a three-point road dog going into Penn State.
Yeah, it's going to be
that would not. I mean, if it was at Auburn, there's no way Penn State's favored. I'd say they'd probably be a 3-point dog going in.
Penn State was like I said, they had a horrible season 2020, but Auburn's in a bunch of turmoil. I think that the two programs are actually a little bit better than you might want to think on the surface. Who knows? We'll see as time gets there. I'll call it a coin flip right now. And then they follow that up with Georgia State, and no SEC team is ever going to lose to Georgia State.
Oh, screw you.
Wait, ever. They'll never lose ever.
Trap game.
Trap game.
Trap game.
How about
Georgia State? Georgia State's the new Troy or what Southern Mississippi used to be.
What did you just tell us? To stop messing around with those little Louisiana schools.
Hey, I mean, Georgia State's turning in to be the new Troy or the new Southern Mississippi. I mean, I remember for like 2 or 3 years there, Southern Miss was like the SEC bugaboo, man, for both Auburn and Alabama.
I was there
twice.
I was there when Brett Favre won the game. I was like 11 when Brett Favre and Southern Miss beat Bama.
Georgia State ain't going to beat Auburn. I'm sorry.
No.
So worst case scenarios after 4 games, Auburn is 3.
I see that as about a 4 touchdown spread on that one.
Yeah. So 3-1 worst case scenario going into their SEC schedule, and they start off with LSU. If they do well against Penn State, I could see them walking into LSU as a 7-point favorite. More on that later because we have yet to talk about LSU, but maybe I will say maybe for that right now.
LSU is going to be the next one to go up in flames. I mean, when they've stopped, when Will Wade has become the least of your problems at LSU, you've got real issues.
What does that mean?
No,
who the hell is Will Wade?
No, Will Wade's the basketball coach. and he was part of the whole scandal paying for players. They've got him on tape. He's lied to the NCAA. He lied worse to the NCAA than Bruce Pearl did, and he still got a damn job.
I didn't even know they had a
But
basketball team.
Ogeron, this Darius Guice thing is not good for him.
Oh yeah, that's a Clary Act violation, correct?
It ain't going away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. They haven't been talking about it a lot, but that's. I'm sorry that one's not going away.
What happens if you violate a Clary Act? Just give some clarification for the viewers.
Warren? Are you familiar with the Clary Act? The Clary Act says that if a crime is committed on campus, it has to be made public knowledge.
Oh,
and so they are saying that LSU has violated the Clary Act because this crime occurred. They didn't make it known, and then it was only discovered later after the NCAA investigation began.
mm-hmm.
And this is the Darius Guice thing that you were alluding to, Dren.
Yeah.
So inappropriate sexual conduct.
And this is something that LSU has not had the greatest track record in the world. The best running back LSU ever had. I mean, ever had. Cecil the Diesel Collins. Luckily, Jerry DiNardo got rid of him before it blew up in his face. And this was 90, 95, 96.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and seriously, he would have ended up being probably the best they ever had. He was that good.
Does Auburn beat LSU this next year?
I think so.
I'm not willing to say so. I'm willing to
say so either. Auburn LSU is usually a really damn good game, but I feel better about it than I normally would. So, but I don't know.
I'm willing to say that I'm about as confident as I am when they play Penn State. Penn State and LSU sort of falls in the same.
Yeah, it's going to be a fight, but I just.
I think Georgia is going to, and I quote, whip the dog crap out of them. To take a line from Mr. Malzahn, who maybe he's
a Golden Knight now.
I believe you get the pencil,
coaching at the 2017 national champion UCF Golden Knights.
Thanks to Auburn. That's what I thought.
Auburn. He called it. Yeah. Good job.
Auburn wins.
So I'm saying in the first 5 SEC games here, I see a potential win against LSU, a loss against Georgia, probably will beat Arkansas.
If there's one game in conference that they're gonna drop that they shouldn't drop, it could be this. It could be this one.
Well, it all depends on how you feel about Ole Miss.
Honestly, that one's a real trap game.
It also depends on how you feel about Ole Miss. Should Ole Miss be an Auburn win?
Auburn at home, I'll take Auburn.
I feel better. Yeah, I feel better that it's at home. The only 2 games that you mentioned Georgia. When I'll stick to the West on this, but the only 2 games I see Auburn absolutely just having, I think, little to no chance are A&M and Bama. I mean, it honestly depends on who Jimbo's going to have playing quarterback. But I mean, I think A&M handles them in College Station.
Okay.
College Station.
So I see Auburn having a rocky year. The best I can say is that they might beat LSU. They might beat Arkansas. They might beat Ole Miss. I think Georgia and A&M are going to beat them for sure, and then probably 1 or maybe even 2 of those other 3 right there on the screen will beat them. So worst case scenario, they go 1-4 in this stretch. Best case scenario, they go 3-2.
I think they got a better. I think Arkansas's got a better shot at them than Ole Miss does.
All right, looking ahead, and then the final 3 games there: Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Alabama. Of those, I think they should win Mississippi State and South Carolina games.
Yeah.
To clinch the Birmingham Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Will that get them? Here's a good question: Will Auburn get bowl eligible?
I think they will. I think they'll get just barely, because that's Auburn. That's how Auburn rolls. Auburn either barely barely make a bowl game, or they'll win the SEC. There's no in between with Auburn.
I think seven wins is probably
that's the ceiling for me.
it's it. Yeah.
To that point, and we talked about it earlier, where Auburn does has the Superman moment. If they have one of those this year, who is it against?
Bama.
Yep. I got Bama at home.
Bama at home.
I mean, they've got Bama.
You take that train off the tracks again.
Auburn's got a hell of a record against Bama and Jordan-Hare. I mean,
would be awesome.
Yeah, it would definitely be awesome because it would help a lot of folks. But that's the thing with Auburn, y'all. I will never get down about a season where people are having this discussion about Auburn because these are the seasons that Auburn surprises folks. If y'all were sitting here saying, it's going to come down to Bama and Auburn at the end, they'll both be undefeated, I'll be like, no, that's not happening. But Auburn's not going to do
it. Let's see. What about should we look at transfer portal stuff?
Why not?
Okay, I want to share some of this, and just because I just have questions,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. So what we're looking at here is Auburn's 2021 transfer portal, and got Cord Sandberg leaving. He's a EKU,
Eastern Kentucky, yeah,
and 3 running backs: DJ Williams, Harold Joyner, Mark Anthony Richards, all leaving. Got a Florida State guy, a Michigan State guy, and then Mark Anthony hasn't decided yet.
He probably come back.
What do you think of these running backs, Warren? Any you have any knowledge of them?
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to hurt. Auburn's losing a lot of talent there. With DJ's is a speedster, and Harold had a lot of potential too. I mean they still got Tank, and that's but. Unless they have a different style of offense that Malzahn had to beat the hell out of the running backs over and over again, that's the only thing that's going to save them because they have absolutely no depth at running back right now. And this is probably the biggest thing that's hurting them this year.
One receiver is going to USF, Matthew Hill, a very highly rated receiver.
Wow. Auburn's really good at that too under Malzahn. I mean, every 5-star he brought in transferred out, I believe. I don't think they kept any.
And then Kamar Bell and Justin Osborne, offensive lineman. It's like SMU is getting Justin Osborne and don't know where Kamar Bell is going. Are these guys that you're counting on or were counting on, or how much of an impact is this going to be?
I will go ahead and say that out of – hate losing offensive linemen, but I mean, these guys were probably at the bottom of the depth chart. I never heard their names in any discussions.
All right. Then here you go, Big Cat, who now they've just taken the Tennessee
logo. Question mark now. What the hell happened? Yeah. He was evolved.
That used to be a big orange T there, and they removed that, put a question mark, and now their prediction is 100% Oklahoma.
So say they hired Heupel from Oklahoma, and then he ends up going to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Heupel. Well, he played at Oklahoma, but they hired him from UCF.
Yeah.
Then you got a guy coming in, Andrew Leota. You're getting this guy from Northwestern here, and then let's see, Daquan Newkirk is going to Florida, and Coinus Miller looks like he's going to go play for Prime in that prime time.
Yeah, Jackson State. Yeah.
Couple linebackers going. One guy's going to Purdue, and another one who knows.
Right.
Oh, you guys are getting a little present here. This Drayshawn Miller kid.
There were 2 good pickups today with Drayshawn and Dylan.
Well, I want to say something about Drayshawn Miller.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid that we've been expecting because Georgia.
We have not. Mitch, you are like stuck on this dude. I don't understand this. Go ahead with your infatuation. Then let me follow up.
It just made sense. Here, you listen. Best pass defense in the Big 12 last year belonged to West Virginia, and their defensive backs coach was help me out. His name Jamil Adai. Jamil Adai is his name, and he recently, Charlton Warren is leaving Georgia. He was a defensive backs coach that we got out of Florida. He's leaving Georgia, and now we're getting this guy Jamil Adai from West Virginia to be the new DBs coach. And we have some very talented DBs who are very young and untested and so forth and so on. And we thought the Georgia fan base thought we would probably bring in a defensive back from the portal. And given that we're bringing in Jamil Adai from West Virginia, and then all of a sudden there's this West Virginia DB in the portal, we think probably this guy, right? And then today he signs with Auburn, and I'm like, perfect. What the heck is that?
Would have been worse. All you need to know: his position coach came. He didn't read between the lines. Maybe in that number 1 ranked defense, he wasn't the one.
Maybe he wasn't the guy. I don't know. Maybe not. But
I don't watch a lot of West Virginia football. Do you guys? I watch some. Who here is the expert on West Virginia? Let me lower my hand.
Let's see. Dren got to see him up close and personal. 2018, right?
No,
Will Greer.
Yeah.
Last thing I know is in 2006.
Last time I
whipped our ass in a bowl.
Virginia, Major Harris was their quarterback, and that was '89.
We had the rain game in 2009 against West Virginia. It's the last time I've seen them. And then the fans proceeded to go through all the tailgate areas and tear down a great deal of the awnings and things. Yeah, they lived up to their reputation when they came along.
They had to have some kindling for those couch burnings that they were about to anticipate. So anyhow, these are guys. This portal guys are folks that are on the way out. Is there anybody coming in on Auburn's recruiting class that is exciting to you? Is there anybody that's like blows your skirt up or anything like that?
No, I've learned. I think I'm conditioned for that after years of Malzahn's recruiting classes and getting fired up about certain players and the 4 and 5 stars, and then them not getting on the field, the talent not being developed, and then them transferring somewhere else. So I look at the rankings, I look at the players. I really would love to be like a Bama fan and be like, hell yeah, number 1 recruiting class, we're winning another title. You know what I mean? That would be great. But no, I'm sure there's some future stars on there, but no. Aside from the kind of a bit of a relief today, picking up a couple more folks, that helps out. It's pretty underwhelming recruiting class, but of course we're in a transition coaching. So it's kind of hard to really get too fired up about that. If y'all haven't already figured out, I am just kind of like this right now about the season and the coach and everyone. And I'm like, hoping for the best, hope they do a great job. I'm glad that it wasn't a hire. Like I do have, morals when it comes to some of the coaching things they talked about in the past. And I've been like, if they bring this guy in, I'll hang my stuff up while they're here, and I'm not going to watch. There's certain coaches out there who just aren't. So Brian seems to be a pretty decent fella, and I know it is a game, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is driven by that. But you still want to see some sort of ethical standards, and I feel pretty good about that side of it. Now I don't want to be one of those fans and be like, hey, we run a clean program. We went 1-10. No, I'm not like that. I look back to 2010 to Nick Fairley. I know y'all love Nick Fairley. Yeah. Like he's the kind of player though. He's a bastard, but you're like, but he's our bastard. And Georgia would have loved him, and Tennessee would have loved him, and he would have been the badass of all the, for everyone else. It bothered me, right? Like a lot of the players like that. I don't like the nasty players. I'm going on a tangent. But still, I don't know. I don't get excited until now the season starts rolling around, the storylines start building up, all of that. I used to get into all the granular stuff like this. I just don't do it anymore. I've been so disappointed, and I've been like, I feel this way about it. And then I'm like, holy crap, I was so completely wrong that I'm just like, I'm going to wait and see.
Oh, boys. It's getting close to that time for me. I'm going to have to be getting out of here pretty soon.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
Anything that we need to add to this before we shut it down?
I'll tip the there's a can of worms and there's a top. I'm gonna just tip it open. Whether you play video games or not is irrelevant, but NCAA college football is coming back to the major video game.
Yep.
To that stage, that platform, that industry. It's been gone since I think early 2010s.
Yep.
Notre Dame will not be participating in allowing anything from their school to be in that game until there is a final settled answer on whether or not players can be compensated for their likeness and image. So Notre Dame is out until they say one way or the other. There can be no more bullshit. If there's bullshit by the time the programmers are making the game, Notre Dame is out.
Right.
But here's the thing: most of those teams, the later games, they're all fictional players anyway. Whether or not, I don't know whether how they can build a case to say, well, they're using my likeness. It's like Cam Newton's likeness. When it's a completely it's a parody.
Mhm.
EA could argue it's a parody.
Me on another tangent. The NCAA is a racket. The players need to be paid, and I'm sick of the bullshit too. It's obvious who those players are in those games. I mean, it's obvious that big number 2 is Cam Newton. That can be easily litigated out. And for once, I respect Notre Dame for that move. I mean, if they want some clarity on what that is, because there's a lot of damn money being made in college football, billions of dollars, and the only ones getting a college degree, right? I've worked with some of those kids. Some of those kids can't read coming into college. How we tied minor league football to college is one of the biggest bunch of BS. Like I said, I'm going to go on a tangent or go on my soapbox, but it is the highest form of bullshit. All these people who talk about the purity of the game. You talk about Clemson. Dabo Swinney can kiss my ass. He makes millions of dollars. Stop talking about that stuff. So anyway.
All right.
Worms, and I have, as you can tell, I hold a lot of strong opinions about it.
Oh yes,
we're going to talk to you again very, very soon.
Yes, we that is a completely different. We could do an entire show on that.
That might need to be a universal topic on the field of streams.
Yes.
Everybody, come on. That's what we're dealing with. Here's a can of worms. Should they be paid? Go.
Mitchell got bad.
Than my team.
Hey, I got to cut it loose, guys. So this has been fun. I've enjoyed this. Thanks for everybody for being here. I'm going to go ahead and cut Dren and Warren loose here. So we'll talk to you boys again really, really soon.
All right.
And Matt. So another week down. We're going to do this again Tuesday night next week.
Tuesday night's 9:30. Let's settle into that. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Y'all are all on YouTube. You know how this works. I shouldn't even have to tell you, but I'm still gonna.
Yeah.
Help us get it started. We're gonna. I want to have more people on like this. I know it's a Georgia show. I'd like to see some more shows from other fans. Maybe that's one of y'all. Maybe it's one of the guys we just talked to. I know Brand had his show going, but
they'll be back. They'll be back.
Let's get on the internet and run our mouths because it's why not?
All right,
everybody else does.
Well, have a wonderful week, everyone. God bless America. God bless Georgia Bulldogs. Go to hell, Auburn. Okay. We'll talk soon, Matt. Later on.
All right. Peace.